Alright, what's happening, everybody? The bases are all finished, and we've got the doors prepped. I believe I took video of that. We degreased, we cleaned, sanded. I actually tack clothed, back in tack clothed afterwards. I can't remember if we took a video of that. It's been a long couple days. Anyways, we are going to go ahead and prime them. Again, we're using Zinsser bin because it just adheres amazing. So we have really small kitchen, and we're gonna go ahead and do that right now. So without much further ado, let's make some noise, huh? You like my dirty ladder? I paint. Good there. So, I sprayed off of buckets for the longest time, and then I finally just built one of these. It's a couple of 2x4s put together with a 2x6 on top and a 2x6 on bottom. It's got a lazy Susan thingy on top. This works sometimes, sometimes not. It's kind of a pain in my butt, actually. So I highly recommend getting it cut or making your own to the height that works for you. This one's short because I'm really short. My employee has one that's quite a bit taller. He's much taller than me. You want to have it so that your knuckles, when you go like this, so that you're not playing with your arm all day long. Here we go. One thing about bin, I was really terrified when I started doing this that, oh, it's gonna blow up, it's flammable, I'm terrified. I gotta tell you, this stuff goes out the door really quickly. You know, you don't want to be spraying it near an open flame, of course. However, with ventilation, there's zero problems. At least I've had no problems. I know a lot of people that haven't. No, when you start out, at a very minimum, just box fans work. Put a big furnace filter on the front of them, or the back to, you know, blow the air out. Works really well. We upgraded to a larger fan, and I'm going to be turning that on here, as well as a turbine unit as well. So we will get going. Don't forget this, Montoya. So I forgot to plug the turbine in. Is what it is. I'm going to do that now. Please take please take a look while I'm spraying. I really try to make everything mechanical. Okay, so I've seen videos of people that are just like, psh. And if you're using an airless sprayer, that's fine. You have to move insanely fast. You just gotta mist coat it and go. However, with an HVLP that we're going to be using today, we want to do a 50% overlap on everything, so everything appears wet. We don't want any dry spots. It's bin though, it's the first coat, so we're not hugely worried about it. If there's a problem, we'll take care of it. So, here we go. Okay, so we got one side prime, same with the little drawers. There's one thing that I forgot to put in here, and that's when I do my doors and drawers, or my drawers, I just use a tiny little cup, set it on, put it in the middle. We tried the little triangles and everything like that, but this is just simple and it works. It doesn't fall as much, so. And then you don't have to try to fix the corner, because they always fall on the corner when you do drop them. But there are some tricks to fix that if it ever happens. So, thanks to Long Paul Tall Dibdall for that tip that saved my butt quite a few times. I think we're on hour 14. So I'm gonna go take a shower and a nap. Alright, everybody. It's the weekend. We had a couple other projects that we had to get done, so we have slowed things down on this tiny kitchen, but we're ready to go back. What we've done is we've already cleaned twice. We have sanded, vacuumed, tack clothed, and we have binned them. Looks like let's see this, smacked this part into the top of the other one, which, we're still at a good stage for that to be an issue. Anyways, what we're going to do now is go over all of the work with 320 sandpaper. Let's go right here. Just make sure everything's smooth as butter. We're going to vacuum, and then we're going to tack cloth again. And from there, we can go ahead and spray our poly. That's it. Again, this is a super small kitchen, so there's not a lot of it. Okay. Hi. This is all primed, everything like that. Now, because I used the wrong spray gun for this, I should not have used the one that I did. We need to sand it more than I would like. Sometimes when you're spraying bin, you don't even have to sand it at all. It happens a lot. As long as you have the proper equipment and technique, and I did not on this one. So, you are not going to see it, but there's a very, very, very tiny little orange peel to it. So this is going to be the sanding process that we will do between each coat. At this point, we're going with 320 grit sandpaper. Some people might use 3M. These are the maroon ones. Scotch-Brite pads. But I've got a little bit too much stipple here. These are the ultra-fine ones. Yeah, I want them smoother. So, maybe Festool 320. So your hand, your sense of touch, is that right? Did I say that right? Your sense of touch? Is that a sense?
I mean, I think so.
Okay, alright. Had to ask Amanda. The way that this feels is the indicator of whether it's ready or not to me. I don't want to feel anything. I want it to feel as smooth as possible, and by that I mean I want it to feel like a piano when you run your hand over it. You can really, this is maple, so we can achieve that. What we're finding a lot of the times is when we're refinishing maple cabinets, we're getting them better than the way they came from the factory. Many times, you know, they stain them and they do that, and then they apply a clear with a sprayer, but they just, I don't know, don't strain it or whatever it is, but there's drips, there's sags, there's grittiness to them. So before you actually go ahead and do a cabinet job, you know, when you're there meeting with the customer, run your hand along it and see what it feels like. I guarantee you're going to find something that sticks out like, oh, wow, feels like a little bit like sandpaper. Alright, so we vacuumed them, and I just want to say, I'm sure everyone knows this, but we sand them because if there's any type of orange peel whatsoever, each coat that you put on after that will enhance the orange peel until things look like craters. We don't want orange peel. We want these to look and feel like fine furniture, because they are. You know, cabinets are, I don't know, minimum 10 grand. So we don't want to treat them like a piece of garbage. We want them to be as smooth as humanly possible. Oops. Before we move on to the next step, which is flipping it over, going to tack cloth. Okay. Sometimes if the sandpaper gets a little too crazy, I like to vacuum it off. It's not too bad right now. You always want to pay attention near where the poles are, because that's where you're going to have the most wear and tear. You're going to have most hand oils, greases, things like that around there. We use bin, and the reason we use bin is because the adhesion is phenomenal. The stain blocking is phenomenal. I don't know that we can get a better one. And the dry time is amazing. It sands to a powder, super smooth. You can get it glassy. This is shellac alcohol-based primer. There are amazing oil primers. Very durable. Been used for a long time. By the way, shellac has been used for thousands of years. So that's one thing. There are, depending on your situation, waterborne primers. You really have to test those out a lot to find the one that really works for the situation that you are in. We really don't use them too much anymore. We have used Zinn Extreme Bond UMA primer when people are concerned about about fumes from shellac or oil. We will go ahead and use that as our base coat. You can stick that to tile. Stain blocking, though, it is kind of an issue with that. So that would be on a dark thing, dark project only for me, personally. That being said, I don't have all the answers for everything. I know a lot of the products that we've tested. We've tested quite a few of them over the years. And there's not a single thing that can be just a blanket product. You don't have to use one thing for everything. I like to use the products that fit the situation that I'm in. Realistically, at this point in my week, I think we had, I don't know, 3 or 4 different jobs going on. That was about 95. I'm just rambling nonsense. We've cut out the parts that really made no sense. And Kyle is editing this and interjecting the moments where I am clearly sleep deprived and dehydrated. So that's the door. Now, again, we repeat this through every step. This is the primer that we use is Bin regular shellac primer, tinted with 2 ounces, dosed 2 ounces only, because that's what it takes of universal tint with 2 ounces of black. Gives us this gray color. These are going General Finishes black. All right, everybody. We've got something on the record player. There's Amanda. She's got her mask on. Proper safety. Right there. It's harder to do that than I expected. We have Eye of the Tiger right there. It's important. We are going to go ahead. We've got everything prepped. We have everything set up. I've got my products strained. Not in that one, but in this one. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put on our masks. And we're going to start spraying this kitchen. Before we start, obviously, shooting it onto the doors, we're going to adjust our spray pattern and our fluid nozzle, or our fluid flow as well, just to make sure we get it into a fine spray. Not too dry, not too wet, but that's about it. So, here we go. Alright, so we sprayed, we let it dry. It's very, very, very humid here today. It's like 80 degrees, going up to 90 something, and it's been raining all night, so it's affecting our dry time a little bit. If you have a small shop or garage and you want to keep temperature control, I do suggest getting a small air conditioner, dehumidifier. There's some portable ones that you can just stick a hose out through the window. I've got one of those. They work pretty well. Drop it about 10 degrees, depending on the size of your shop. But we've got our one side one coated. Look at that, it's shinny. Now we're gonna go to our front. We always start on the back because on the final coat, we always want the front of the doors face up because we just don't want to take the chance of there being any little tiny nick from the rack of any kind. We want this to be as perfect as possible, and that's why we do that. Alright, everybody, we have coated, we have one coated, at least one coat. We put black on both the back and the front of all our pieces. Got a nice shine to it. We're using General Finishes Enduro, black poly, and a satin finish to do these. I really love the way that it looks. These are maple cabinets, so every little imperfection stands out, which is kind of a pain in the butt. These cabinets are very, very beat up, so we're going to sand them down and make them look as good as possible. The finish that we have on here right now, after all the prep that we've done, it's very, very smooth, but we just want to double check for any bumps, any little thing that got caught in the sprayer. I know there's some on here because, I actually had my HVLP out in the car yesterday, in the van yesterday. It was like 95 degrees. So I probably should have taken that out and strained it, but that's okay. We just deal with it. Mistakes happen and then we learn, right? Anyways, here's what we got. I am in love with the fact that they're black. You know what? As a finisher, the trend right now is all white. Dover white, white Dove, antique whites. I mean, we've done so many different kinds of whites. We've done so many different kinds of grays. So something different is making my soul happy right now. So what we're going to do now is, in preparing for another coat of black poly, we're going to go ahead and take them all down. We're going to sand, vac, and tack again. We're going to do the front first. So if you do have some spots that are pretty bad, if they're gritty, if you got dry spray, something like that, sometimes you might think to, maybe I'll go down to 240 with my sandpaper. On maple, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. I would just suggest not doing that, because maple shows, you'll see the sandpaper lines if you're in too low of a grit. So 320 is really the lowest that'll go on these maples. And at this point, because we've already got our prime coat and we've got our finish coat coming up real quick here, we're just going with very fine 3M sander pads, just to knock anything down. Really, there's no significant issues. Really doesn't even feel like I need this, but we're gonna do it anyway, because we're aiming for perfection. So these are really nice, because if you can see here, we've got some grooves that we need to get into. Just a little bit of detail on these where they added some extra trim work, and the getting in the profiles with regular sandpaper is a pain in the butt. So these are very handy for this. A little bit of decorative trim that they have here on the side. It's going to be very important that you come at it with an angle. I went to a finishing class, and what they did on their last pass was they went through diagonally on their last spray, just to get in all the different angles, make sure everything was covered. The tendency is to want to load these things up super duper heavy, to, I don't know, overload them realistically. I wouldn't do that if I were you. And the reason being, tangent alert. Let's give the editor. One, don't caulk panels. The little gap right here is here for a reason. This is a floating panel. This door is constructed to move. It's to shift, to swell and shrink with the humidity and the temperature of the world. You don't caulk those. You don't see them caulked from a factory. If you do, I've never seen it, and I've seen thousands of cabins. If you overload this and you fill that up, the gap right here in the corner, if you put too much in and you just have a floating mass of liquid here, it's going to want to bridge the gap in between there. Okay? And you don't want that to happen, because there needs to be a gap so that the panel can shift a little bit. If you fill this up with so much product, if you're putting on too many mils, what will happen is that'll get covered and it will crack, and then the panel will shift and it'll shear off your beautiful finish. So if there's some kind of crazy humidity swing, it's much easier to maybe someday down the road, if it shrank that much, come through with an airbrush and put a little bit of that on the new part that is opened up. But it's not so fun having to sand down that part of the cabinet and redo the whole process. My 10 cents. Green frog tape lid means tangent's over with. So, sand, vac, tack. Did we get everything? Nope. Just a little bit nicer. Now we're starting with the front side, or the front of the cabinet door, because we're going to lay it down upside down. So we're going to flip it over right now and just do the prep for both of them right away, and then we're going to lay this up upside down, because we want to stage it for our racking in the way that we're going to spray it. So as I know I mentioned before, we want to put this in, we will spray this side, and then the final spray we will spray this, because this is what everyone sees. It's the most important part. If this gets dinged up a little bit, transportation or, you know, the rack dings it somehow, it's okay. We can just come through a little airbrush or foam brush and take care of it. So that's why we do that. So your hand is going to be the indicator of whether or not it's super smooth or not. We always want it as smooth as possible. If I could, I would try to get this to look like a piano. This one, we're not going to get to that. It really just is what it is. We can't add all the clear coats that would be needed, but we still wanted to make it look really, really nice. So we've got some ugliness. Some of these doors are just really damaged from water. They didn't want to replace them. We just do the best we can with what we have. You know, some people are on a budget, so these cabinets are still going to look a million times better than they have for the past 15 years. All the doors have been prepped. They have been primed, sanded, tack cloth, vacuumed multiple times. We have our black poly first coat on. We're going to be putting on another one here. In between that, we've sanded all the doors and drawers, and vacuumed and tack cloth them. One thing that we do before we spray again, though, well, a couple of things actually. One, we make sure we clean our gun out completely. I don't care if it's been a couple of hours. When you're putting maybe the last coat, maybe the close to last coat on it, you need to make sure that you strain your product. Your gun is completely clean, like brand new clean, because there's nothing worse than to just be almost done with a big beautiful kitchen and you just get some sprayer glob. It sucks. But other than that, we also vacuum. You can see here we've just got a lot of overspray. Realistically, there's about 7 or 8 different kitchens worth of color down here, but every time that we do spray, we get a little bit of dust. Okay, so we're gonna vacuum that up. Because we're doing a black kitchen, every little thing is going to show up on them. You know, and the fact that it's maple, you're going to see any little spot, any little anything, especially with the black satin Enduro poly that we're using. We really want it to look like a piano finish as close as we can with, you know, what we're doing to it. So keep dust down. We do have air movers and particulate filters and things like that that we'll run to.